Hello and welcome to the Green Outdoors podcast. My name's Kyle.
I'm AJ.
I'm Jeff.
And we are joined by our friend Chris today. Now, we met Chris through Facebook, and we had been posting some of our typical hunting and fishing content. And Chris is basically commented, and we had some disagreements. And we thought this would be a great opportunity. He was well-spoken. He was articulate. He was nice. He was someone you can disagree with but still have a conversation, which we haven't ever run into before. So typically it's either, people agree or they disagree. And in this day and age, things are so segregated, that things are so different. Everyone's on this side or that side. So it's kind of cool to be able to have a conversation from the two sides. And while I anticipate we won't be leaving here completely changed, at least we might have a little bit of a better understanding of both points of view. Now, that said, at least we're supposed to feel like it's some sort of trial or some sort of
level playing field where everyone gets to be heard. We want it to be formal, and this isn't anything like a kangaroo court. We're having a nice debate.
And so because of that, we need our judge. And you notice Ryan didn't get introduced yet. And today his name is
Honorable Judge Ryan Lewis Parks presiding.
All rise.
I'm not getting up.
There's courts.
All right. We know where bias is going.
Oh, man.
Chris is sitting. He got up. He got up.
That's awesome. I love it.
All due respect.
Right.
Don't feel too much pressure for the respect.
Oh, it looks like he's prepared some documents here, huh?
Oh, wow.
Your Honor?
Wow, that's quite
That's
quite a mouthful.
In the assembly of this esteemed court, where the hallowed principles of justice are invoked, I, as the discerning judge, cannot but raise my voice in fervent defense of the accused, as the prosecution seeks to cast shadows of doubt upon the innocence of the defendant. Let us not be swayed by their hollow accusations and...
Uh-oh.
He's losing his way on the
stuck.
accent. He's losing his head.
Specious
arguments, for too often we witness the relentless pursuit of scapegoats driven by insatiable hunger for retribution. Yada, yada, yada.
ChatGPT is quite wordy.
I did write it with ChatGPT. Rules consist of the following: no filibusters, no name calling. Both parties must leave one another's mothers out of the debate. and finally, no biting, gouging, or scratching. Let the the debate begin.
What did you type into ChatGPT?
I said a 1700s judge opening for a biased.
You're biased? I'm sorry, Chris, he's biased.
He was the only one who stood.
Thank you, AI. Great opening speech.
So, Chris, to start out, I think I kind of prepped the audience a little bit. We're here to have a conversation. Why don't you introduce yourself, talk about who you are, what you do. I don't know for certain that you are vegan, but just kind of a little bit of an outline of who you are and what you're about. We'll talk a little bit about us, and then we'll have you kick everything off kind of with your point of view and why you responded to us. And you've gotten to see some episodes, too, you said.
I watched the ones you sent me, which the algorithm triggered some more of, and I watched a few.
Awesome.
So my name is Chris. I'm 45. Currently I live in Reno, Nevada. Grew up in California, left California as soon as I could. Ended up living in Lakeshore, Ontario, not too far from where you are, for several years. And then finally, my priorities changed and moved back to Reno. I am a concert lighting director. I travel the world lighting concerts.
Neat.
And specific to this conversation, I used to be on your side. I am a former outdoorsman.
Oh,
and I started asking myself hard questions. And then I realized that not only is it not beneficial, it's not necessary, as I had always been told as a child growing up. I was always been told that we have to do it to survive and to thrive. I started asking myself hard questions. I did the experiment to see if it is necessary and or beneficial. All the evidence pointed to the fact that it's just not. So I changed my views and I became an animal activist, a vegan, and I would say that's mostly based on my libertarian views.
It's interesting.
That's really
So that's-
interesting.
It's interesting you say libertarian because that would be, if you were to pick a side for us, that's where we would all pretty much end up, on the libertarian side. Rand Paul fan, are you?
Libertarian, capital L, the libertarian
Okay. We'd be the capital
platform is not
C,
updated.
but
We spell it wrong. But
Yeah,
it's okay.
I have libertarian views. I don't support the Libertarian Party outside of Joe Jorgensen.
Okay. Interesting.
Okay.
Interesting. And I thank you for your transparency. Like you were saying, it's cool to just be able to have a transparent conversation. For those of you who don't know, my name's Kyle Green. I'm the host of The Green Outdoors. If you're landing on this podcast, you probably know that, but maybe you don't. My background is I learned to hunt and fish as a kid, and it was always important to me to know where my food came from. I eat on a typical week. I'm eating wild game 5 or 6 days a week, mixed with organic fruits and vegetables, always organic. I believe it's healthy. I believe it's clean, and I'm still in the camp that the science backs it up. So that's kind of where we differ, and where we've come together to start this conversation. So, like I said, I was going to let you have the floor first. Do you have a specific way you want to start with the floor, or do you want me to lead with a question?
I'll start with my base claim. If since there's the honorable judge, if I can present my first claims, I would like to take the first one.
Proceed.
Best way I can say it is that we know that humans don't need to hurt animals for decoration, entertainment, or sustenance. Therefore, if you hurt animals for these reasons, you do so out of amusement, and it's wrong to hurt others for personal amusement. That is the basis of my claims, and that is why I became an animal advocate.
Okay. You said you did an experiment to see if it was necessary, and then obviously in your talk there, you just talked about how it wasn't necessary. So that seems to be a residing point that you have. Can you dive deeper into that for me?
I used to, even when I had my kids are 11 years old now. When they were born, they
Twins?
had an aversion to eating them. 11-year-old twins.
Yeah, cool. Very cool.
My wife and I were still under the assumption that they had to eat animals to thrive and to get all the nutrition they needed. Some very curious, pushy vegans kept asking me why I would force that upon them. And I realized that I needed to explore the topic further. Instead of ignoring them, I listened, and I went 30 days without eating animals. I did a bunch of reading on the topic. Next thing I know, 30 days turned into 6 years. Still haven't eaten an animal in 6 years. I'm still alive, still well, still thriving, still working out weekly. And I thought that even if you didn't have to eat the animals, you had to use them for leather seats, leather shoes. Slowly, I replaced all my shoes with cruelty-free sources. I was able to replace all of my toiletries. I can't find a reason to hurt animals anymore.
Sure. I noticed in the messages too, typically you would always say hurt. You would never say hunt. You would always use the word hurt. And I could tell that was like a sticking point for you too. I noticed you said you were an outdoorsman before, and you're saying that you stated it as a fact that the only reason why you would do it is because of amusement. Did you find amusement in hurting animals before?
Absolutely. I felt the thrill of it. I felt the power. I felt everything that comes along with expressing dominance over a lower being.
So dive into that. So what kind of outdoor activities did you participate in before?
Let's start with the first time I really realized that it was kind of a smokescreen. My dad was the one that took me out hunting for the first time, and we went out pheasant hunting, and we were just killing pheasants left and right. We had a good day. I think between me and my brother, we came home with about 9 pheasants, which, as a 11-year-old was a lot. It was a long day of shooting. My brother accidentally stepped over one, and his head was tucked under his wing, and he just wouldn't move. And then finally the owner of the club said, yeah, that's how we put them out there for you.
Right.
It was all it was just a way to get me and my brother to start hurting animals.
Okay.
Like we didn't have to hurt these animals. They were planted there.
Sure. Sure.
They weren't destroying anything. They had been grown in a pen They were placed there on purpose.
If you feel as though I am asking too many questions as opposed to giving formal answers back, please notify me, because I don't want to be the guy who's just hammering with questions. But as you're saying things, I'm thinking we can continue down this road of questioning, and then maybe we can switch. And I think that will be a good way to get it out, because I don't want to interrupt your thoughts and move away from anything, because I think everything you're saying is worth talking about. I have a question for you. Do you believe if those pheasants weren't going to be hunted, because Lord knows there's probably a few that you guys missed out there too, do you believe that those pheasants ever would have been born?
Yes, if pheasants have existed long before us, they'll exist long after us.
You think the pheasants where you were, those specific pheasants would have been born?
No, if the humans hadn't artificially impregnated them, they probably would not have been born.
Sure. And we find that to be the case with most farm animals too. And this isn't a trap. I don't even want to speak in a way that seems like I led you down a trap. I want to be very transparent with that. But when you look at these pheasant populations and you look at farming, a lot of people have problems with cows being farmed. They have problems with animals being farmed. And how many, we have no idea, but however many cows there are in North America today, how many would be there if we didn't utilize them as a resource? And the answer is almost none. And in fact, we couldn't even sustain them, because if everybody moved to a vegan lifestyle, we wouldn't continue to raise cows and have them breed. There's some wild cows in Hawaii. I believe there might be some in Alaska, but other than that, there's no wild cows running around still. Mm-hmm. So the cow population, we wouldn't be able to sustain it, and the landscape wouldn't either if everyone went to vegan, because you can imagine the massive amount of crops that would have to be raised in comparison to how much is raised now. You're talking about massive ecological damage. You're talking about ecosystems getting ripped up. You're talking about deforestation. You're talking about waterways being polluted by fertilizers. You're talking about Monsanto controlling the entire food enterprise. You're talking about fake meat being produced, and then the government controlling that meat, which I know as a libertarian, you of all people can understand the hatred for that part. But you're talking about everyone switching to a plant lifestyle. But the fact is, the amount of crops and the amount of damage it would take in order for that to happen is incredible. And these animals wouldn't be born. Now, I'm not a big fan of factory farming, as a lot of people aren't. But we're not going to raise the amount of cattle that are raised to this day and age and protect them from predators and do all the things that we do to raise them. We were just in New Mexico recently, and we were on 35,000 acres hunting pronghorn, which is they call it pronghorn antelope, but it's not an antelope at all.
Antelope adjacent.
Yes. We were hunting pronghorn, and there was thousands and thousands of cattle there. And these cattle, they live long, long lives. I think they live to be 10 or 11 or something like that before they go to harvest. And those cattle would not be there because no one would have impregnated them, the same way the pheasant wouldn't have been there unless humans intervened to make them. See, we build them up as resources. And if you wiped out the ecosystems because you were going to put in farms everywhere you could to try and sustain life only on farming, there'd be no habitat left. So the animals wouldn't be born, there'd be no habitat left, and they wouldn't exist.
I used to believe that same thing until I read up, and I actually read the studies and the research that completely debunks that thought that I held as well.
Well, let's hear them.
Well, let's start with a simple question. Who eats more crops, the 80 billion animals that are in captivity or the 8 billion humans?
I mean, are you talking about across the entire world? 80
the whole world. There's
80
billion animals in captivity.
Well, who eats more?
And there's 8 billion humans.
So you'd have to look at that question in two ways, because the life expectancy of animals is less than that of humans. So are you talking about how much is consumed on a daily basis from all animals versus all humans in the entire
captivity? He said.
Well, that would be a loaded thing, though. We're talking about animals, of whether they can survive or not. That wouldn't be a fair question. You wouldn't say animals in captivity. You would say animals. So if you added up all the food...
No, I'm talking about just the animals that are being held on farms and what you would call livestock. I call them captive animals.
Sure, but what I'm saying is that without the ecosystem there, all animals are on like the same playing field. Because your whole point is to not hurt any animals. It's not like you're only trying to save captive animals. Your whole argument is all animals. And I don't know the answer. I don't know if humans eat more than all the animals in the world. I would doubt it, because some animals eat tons and tons and tons of food. I would heavily doubt, especially if you roped in the ocean.
8 billion as opposed to 80 billion animals being held on ranches, farms, in factories, which one do you think eats more crops?
I don't know the answer. I would assume it would be the animals. I would assume it would be the animals.
Undeniably 80 billion animals.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But but the way I guess this is how my brain works. This will help you with how I think. Is I'm talking about the animals so if an animal lives for 10 years, one cow is going to eat significantly less than one human because his life expectancy is less. So on a day-to-day
basis, they're just going to replace that cow with another cow.
Right. So I would say that between the animals in captivity eat more than humans do in crops, and I would also say that animals overall, obviously, if just the captive ones do, animals overall eat more other animals and crops than humans do.
So we already have enough arable agricultural land to feed, I think it's like 10 billion people.
Yeah, as long as we get rid of all your animals. As long as we get rid of all those animals, right?
No, they're fine. You can just leave them be. They're going to eat what they're supposed to eat, the animals, the grass.
No.
They're not coming after your Little Caesars pizzas.
So your argument, well, what is Little Caesars pizza made out of?
Animals.
And
flour.
And plants,
and
yeah. Okay, so your argument on the whole thing is that our nutrition could be the same and all the animals would be just fine. All the cows would continue to reproduce and live their cow lives and have plenty of food to eat. They wouldn't have a population boom. There would be no reason to keep them in check. All animals would continue to procreate how they are, continue to be born how they are, and not compete with us for food in any way, and there's plenty of crops for all of us to coexist and be fine, even though the hole in your argument is that 95% of people eat meat currently. So what you're saying is, as long as everybody eats the same amount of plants as they do right now, and the animal numbers stay exactly how they are right now, nothing will need to change. The problem and the hole in your argument is that if everyone comes off of meat and everyone goes strictly to the crops that you say there's enough for now, which there isn't a lot of extra, you say there's a lot now, what about 95% of people who, 60% or more of their diet when they have a lunch or something, their sandwich is covered in meat, their dinner is venison steak and vegetables, what happens then?
So that's why I asked you about the 80 billion animals. If we stopped feeding them human digestible food and ate that food directly instead of processing it through the animals, we could feed exponentially more people.
The problem is you're assuming that new land will be created where all those animals will fairy tale drift off to and then be able to eat. That's the problem. So what you're
not saying a fairy tale, they would rewild themselves. They would become feral again.
Which happens quickly, to your point. You look at pigs, they can become feral in 6 weeks or something. They start growing tusks.
It's less than that even.
Yeah, it's like a wild thing how quick they can.
Cows would take much longer than that, but yeah.
Yeah, sure. In Hawaii, they have them right now where there's they've been in Hawaii, they've been feral for 150 years, and now they're like a completely different beast up in the mountains up there. And the big problem that Hawaii is having, granted it's a unique landscape, is these feral cows, they'll come in and wipe out farmers' fields in one night. Another example would be axis deer in Hawaii. So they were brought over as a gift for a king at one point, and they were let go on some of the islands, Maui being one of them. The numbers, animals did what animals do, is they procreated so heavily because the ecosystem was perfect for them. They became feral, if you will, after they were brought over on ships and let go. They became wild. They ran rampant, and they've completely obliterated all of the resources on Maui to the point where now the government has to make it so people can shoot and sell the meat, which is normally you're not allowed. You're not commercially allowed to sell game, as you know from your outdoorsman days. So what an example like that is what I see coming. You see, there is not always going to be more habitat. And what you're saying is that the animals are consuming a lot of the crops right now, the ecosystem. Like they're eating their allotment of crops right now. We're eating our allotment of crops right now. If we quit feeding them the crops, then they'll stop eating the crops. But do you have any idea why there's more white-tailed deer in Michigan right now than ever in recorded history? Do you have any idea why there's more white-tailed deer in the thumb of Michigan than probably anywhere else in the world? And it's because they are hemorrhaging crops. Do you know that Farmers actually have to get given kill tags here where they can shoot 15, 20 deer a year. Otherwise, they won't even be able to make a living on the crops that they have now. Do you know what would happen if you turn loose cows on top of that there? That's the problem, is the solution that you have, and I think that we'll do our final points on this and move on, because I think we're going to disagree on this one specifically, right? But if imagine letting all the cows in the thumb go, and you're like, all right, go eat other things now, even though this entire thing is farm fields. Don't eat our crops anymore because we're going to need to eat all of our crops. What do you think's going to happen? And on top of that, how do you propose we keep those wild cows off of the crops now? What is your best line of defense there? Because right now they shoot them, and they do the same as far as the white-tailed deer go. So you've got proof that ecosystems that attempt to have farm fields and a bunch of animals run loose, that doesn't work. And in addition to that, you also have the problem that your pheasants and all these other animals that we work so hard to fund, right? So, for instance, there's we'll use salmon fishery. Okay, for instance, we pay fishermen buy a fishing license. The money goes towards the Department of the Fisheries. The fisheries works hard to bring back fish populations that were destroyed by, say, pollution or commercial fishing from the 1930s and 40s, those sorts of things. They bring them back, and now there's a fish stocking process. All of that is funded by the sale of the fishing licenses. Okay, all of it. So if the fishing goes away because people are now vegan, you're going to see species like you wouldn't believe go extinct like that, because those salmon aren't going to just get stocked. The dams that we have to remove that we're funding with the sale of fishing licenses again aren't going to magically go away. You're not going to have all of these things happen where all of a sudden these species can run wild and flourish. What you're going to have is you're going to have incredible competition for crops. You're going to have people resorting to desperation, and you're going to have Michigan's thumb, Hawaii's Lanai or Maui, and you're going to have that situation. You turn loose tens of thousands of cows because they're going to go become feral and eat grass instead of our crops, and we're all just going to have enough is I don't believe that that's a reality.
I'm not unrealistic. I realize that 95% of the population isn't going to stop hurting animals overnight.
Sure.
I realize that it's going to take a very long, arduous road. It's going to take a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of convincing, a lot of discussions like these.
Pivoting a little bit on this, and I can understand that.
Hold on, before we go too far, I want to go back to the axis deer. Whose fault is the axis deer population in Hawaii?
I would say the people that turned them loose, let them go be feral.
I would say people who brought a non-native species to an island.
Yeah. I mean,
where they have no natural predators.
No natural predators whatsoever. Yeah, it's a recipe for madness. But that's kind of my point to this. That's exactly. I think we're both agreeing on this, but for different points.
Okay, so instead of killing more deer, why don't we stop importing animals to Hawaii?
Well, you're proposing
put a ban on importing deer to Hawaii.
Right. So they haven't been brought over for hundreds or thousands.
No, hundreds.
Yeah, I don't. Very long time. It hasn't. It has.
The last time they were imported.
Yeah, hundreds of years ago. So it's not
2009.
Move from one island to another?
No, 2009 was the last time deer were imported to Hawaii.
From where?
From the States.
Look that up, Jeff. That's interesting.
I'm curious.
Yeah, then that would be a good thing to stop. I can't imagine why they would do that when they're desperately trying to get rid of them right now, and the people are. There's a lot of political movement into that, but to your point though, and I have a question for you. You're saying that introducing species to the wild in areas that isn't their home range is not a good idea, but isn't that what you're proposing? By allowing all these farm animals to be released and go be fertilized? I mean, that's the same thing, isn't it?
I don't know what else to do. The damage has already been done. We've already brought all these animals to where they don't belong. The best way to prevent that is to stop doing it. Put a ban on importing animals and take it out of their native habitats.
Question for you. Would you be more comfortable with us not bringing in other animals, not releasing these cows into the wild, not doing that? Would you be comfortable with the pheasants that would never be born, the cows that would never be born. Pigs will be born. You'll be fine on the pigs. They'll be living their pig lives. All those animals that wouldn't be born, would you be more comfortable with that than animals being harvested, say, at 10 years like they were on the cow farm that we were at before? It's not a loaded question, just a genuine ask. Is it the hurt that bothers you?
The farm you went to where they're allowed to live for 10 years, I don't know where that is.
New Mexico. 35,000 acres. Those cows live a great life. You know, and you could understand that there's definitely farms that are, my family in Wisconsin are all, they like milk farmers, dairy farmers. And those cows do live a tremendous, they're passionate about it. But, you know, there are some cattle that go out to slaughter for meat as well, the ones that aren't female, right? But
all of them do.
Eventually, right.
Yes.
Right.
Quick note.
So all of them.
The first axis deer were imported in 1868, so barely even hundreds.
Yeah, barely hundreds.
And then, yes, most recently, in 2009, there were 4 deer that were transported to the Big Island, where they weren't before, and that was done illegally. Someone brought them over just because they wanted some.
Okay, so that was just some schmuck.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
You could argue that whoever gave him to King Kamehameha, he also may have been a schmuck. We don't know.
I never met that guy, but that is to say that the guy did it illegally, and I do think that's a point that's worth making because they weren't imported. You'd have to use the word import, but it's like, yeah, you wish there was a different word for import and illegally transport
they were
and
brought
release
with
too.
luggage.
I mean, that's the same reason why they were brought with luggage.
They're smuggled.
Big old suitcase. And that's the kind of the same thing as like we have a lot of invasive species. If you saw some of our episodes, something we focus on is we do travel the world. And one of the biggest focuses is where we have species, and we have the situation right now in a lot of places, right? Is, for instance, we went to Maryland and the snakehead, which is an invasive fish, out competing all the other fish in the area. You've got something like they call them Asian carp or big head carp or silver carp in the rivers. You know, when you see the people driving the boats and their fish are flying out and everything like that. And to me, I guess our goal for that episode to break that down was we go out on this river, we show people how to bowfish for them because they're filter feeders, so you can't get them to bite a hook, right? So we bowfish for them, we harvest them, we show people how to cook them and encourage people to eat them because people are like sketched out by the word carp, but the meat's actually pretty fantastic. The goal was to get people to do that because if we don't, we're going to lose every other species in the entire ecosystem. And the biggest problem with that is because they're filter feeders, so they're eating all the zooplankton. They eat all the zooplankton. The baby fish can't eat the zooplankton. The bigger fish can't eat the baby fish, so on and so forth. They'll wipe out an entire ecosystem. So in a situation like that, as hunters and fishermen, you say, okay, well, what about the idiot that did it? Well, actually, what happened in that case in Texas was they were in a pond that they were being raised for food and that sort of thing. The river flooded, came up, the fish got out, got in, and just went to town. So in a system like that, and I think what you're going to find is if we release a lot of livestock with diseases and problems and issues, just like when we came over, the white people came over. I say we. Well, you're dressed like that. You make me want to say we. When people came over into North America and spread disease to Native Americans, you're going to see a giant problem with that, with the wild populations, with cattle moving in. We saw the same thing with sheep passing tons of disease, basically wiped out everything. So that's another problem with that. So
it's 80 billion animals.
The common denominator there in every instance is humans wanting to transport and hurt animals.
I think that there's, like, everything we're talking about is kind of in past tense, like where no, we shouldn't be moving animals around, but like moving forward with like Kyle's point to the carp, I'm wondering is like without the bow fishermen and the fishermen in general trying to get rid of these things, the alternative is to let the river die and they take over and then they'll have a population bust eventually. What do we do? Do we just leave it alone?
Eventually they'll find their own equilibrium. I don't see why they should be punished for flourishing in their new environment.
But they'll be the only one.
They're going to be just fine.
The Asian carp are going to be just fine. But the ecosystem will not be.
Just fine. Absolutely. It'll find its equilibrium eventually. All we need to do is stop interfering.
So you believe that I mean, that's
Life
just
finds
not,
a way.
Yeah.
Well, and the
Life finds a way. AJ got his
problem,
word in.
the problem is without, you can't just say we'll stop interfering, because one of the main things we do to interfere with animals in general is taking away habitat, controlling things, putting up walls, putting up whatever we're putting up to stop animals from moving like they naturally would. So you're already there. There's nothing we can do now to get rid of it unless we say, well, we're just not going to live in cities anymore. We're just going to be nomads and move around like the animals do, and you're going to have an even harder time convincing people to do that than you are convincing people not to eat meat.
I don't know how that follows. How did I suggest that?
That was where the conversation
I feel
went.
like you just strawmanned me there. I didn't suggest any of that.
He suggested that we're impacting by moving animals around, by changing things, but those changes there's no way to go back on those changes, because most of the changes aren't just we've moved this one animal from one place to another. It's that we've so greatly impacted their habitat that they're forced into smaller areas. They're forced into different areas.
I think he was more
where they wouldn't normally go.
Yeah, he's not saying that you didn't say we're expanding civilization-wise. He's more or less adding a component to it of like, your answer was to basically let the river go, and we'll see what happens. But we can see what's happening, right? So as the Asian carp have become stronger and stronger and stronger, they're growing faster and faster and faster. They're reproducing. They're succeeding. They're doing fantastic. They're eating all the zooplankton. We're seeing all the species numbers plummet. We've got very rare species that could go extinct in there, such as the paddlefish. There's the pallet sturgeon in there. There's these fish that we're worried about going extinct, and they are trending down like a rocket straight down right now because of the Asian carp. Now, if the Asian carp is our fault, that's fine, but are you comfortable with those? Is your answer to say let those species go extinct? I'm not comfortable with that. I don't want those species to go extinct. I want to control the problem that isn't supposed to be there and fix it. I don't want to hide and cover my face because someone made a mistake. I want to fix the problem.
Okay, then let's support a ban on importing animals.
But they're here.
Well, I think for the most part there is. Like it was an illegal act, right? Or it would be illegal to move species into other things, but again, that doesn't change the fact that those river systems are going to be wiped out. They're a core of our country. Are you willing to let that go? Because you can support, like, hey, from now on, hope it don't happen again. That's great. But what are you going to do about these?
The rivers are going to be just fine. They don't.
No,
need
no,
us.
they're not.
The rivers have been around.
No. The water might be fine and the Asian carp might be fine, but the rivers won't be fine. We know that.
How?
The numbers are plummeting up. I'm going to be really specific on this.
Okay.
The Asian carp are increasing in numbers. They are eating all the zooplankton. They're better at eating it than the native fish. There are native fish in the water, such as the pallet sturgeon and the paddlefish, that are going to go extinct at this rate if we don't get the Asian carp under control. And what you're proposing is we just let it go and hope that the river finds its way, but we know it's not finding its way because we're seeing the numbers catapult downward. I mean, we have a perfect example in this world of species going extinct over and over and over again, and these two fish are native. These are the fish that that Lewis and Clark were stumbling upon. Why would we want to get rid of them? And what are you proposing, that you're comfortable with all those species dying? I mean, that's the point, is like the only way to solve it is to get rid of the Asian carp. You know that because you're proposing we make it illegal to import those fish and put them in the water. No problem. No one even did that one on purpose. But what about now? Like, are you willing to let the Mississippi go? Are you willing to let the Missouri River go and just have Asian carp instead?
I don't see how that follows. Asian carp have been just fine for centuries on their own until we brought them out of their natural habitat.
But they're here.
The fact that they get to thrive there is not their. Why should they be punished for flourishing?
But why should the native fish also be punished? Due to our own fault. So in return,
fault's a stretch, by the way, but go ahead.
In return, to fix the problem, we get rid of the non-native, so we don't kill our natives.
He sounds biased for a judge, doesn't he?
He did say.
Okay. So I didn't get to watch the thing, but didn't I see you guys hunting paddlefish?
Yeah. In certain areas, in other river systems, paddlefish numbers are so high that there is a harvest rate. The Greenway Outdoors is brought to you by Ram Trucks, built to serve. Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's, your adventure starts here. Savage Arms, better comes standard. Nosler Ammunition, world's finest bullets, ammunition, and brass. Boss Shot Shells, superior made and American made. Carlson's Choke Tubes, the only choke tube we've ever purchased. Onyx Hunt, know where you stand.
If you want to be here, it all starts here. At Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's, we have the widest selection of the quality brands you love to get you outdoors. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, our friendly, knowledgeable outfitters will help you find the right products for your next trip. Shop with confidence with our low price guarantee. Plus, club members save even more on great gear with exclusive member pricing. Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's, voted America's best outdoor.
There's a ram. Legends aren't born. They're created. Introducing Impulse from Savage. The all-new American-made straight-pull bolt-action rifle. Unmatched innovation. Fast reloads. Maximized efficiency. Repeatable accuracy. Welcome to American Straight Pull. Only from Savage.
Okay, so you're trying to protect paddlefish by killing paddlefish.
I'm going to answer that in a question, and if there's any other point you want to make on that, do it now, because this one's a little bit winded, but I think that's a great question. I want to make sure I answer it. Your question is, and this is another example of this, even if we didn't want to go paddlefish, is elephants. A lot of people think elephants are on the brink of extinction. Giraffes are on the brink of extinction, but in some areas they're actually overpopulated. Okay? So in this case, let's take the giraffe, for instance. There are areas where the males become so dominant that an alpha male will not let any other males procreate. He won't let them have twin 11-year-old babies. See, he's not going to let anybody else pull it off. So he will kill every other male there that tries to breed a female. But he's too old to even give birth anymore. So because of him, there are less giraffes. If you were to harvest that giraffe, if you were to harvest that giraffe, there would be more giraffes because you harvested him. Because you take him out of the population because he's a problem. He's stopping everyone from reproducing. So that's an example. In addition to that, there are some areas where giraffes are severely overpopulated and completely obliterating everybody's crops, which they live off of, and trampling people, and it's a big issue, whereas in other places they're scarce. No different with the paddlefish. In where we were, in Oklahoma, the paddlefish numbers are really, really, really great. You're actually allowed to harvest, I think, 2 a year because the numbers provide for it. And they are also zooplankton eaters. They are also filter feeders. So in the rivers where they're doing really well, you don't want the numbers to get up too high because these guys can live 60, 70 years. You don't want the numbers to get up too high because if the paddlefish numbers get up too high, they'll start out-competing each other. A lot of people think that if they start out-competing each other for food and there's not enough food, a lot of people have the misunderstanding that that means some will survive and some won't. Like some will get fed enough and some won't. That's not what happens. What normally happens is all of them don't get enough. And a lot of times what you'll see is a population bust in that circumstance. So in the waters where we're fishing for paddlefish, we're not the same waters I'm referring to with the Asian carp, although there's talk of them being able to move in there. Mm-hmm. We're talking about hunting paddlefish where there's a problem, not a problem, but the population numbers are good enough to harvest. There's also the point that I am a fisherman and I am a hunter, and there is an undeniable thing. I noticed in these conversations where people, what they'll tend to do is like shy away from the fact that they don't want to harvest the food. I'll be the first to say I wanted to harvest a paddlefish because I wanted to eat a paddlefish. So that I will admit to that, and I will say that proudly. Like I don't have anything against that. But if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it in waters where you're actually helping the further the population. So then coming back, you look at the snow geese. So snow geese are another interesting option. Snow geese are severely overpopulated. You may or may not know that. They're a migratory bird, and their summering grounds and wintering grounds are so overpopulated that right now they're terrified. They're going to do the migration every year no matter what. God has that planted in their head that they're going to make that migration one way or the other. The problem is their summering grounds and wintering grounds are so overpopulated that none of them are getting enough food. So what they're scared of is we could go from a huge population, and we saw this with Canada geese. You got them on every golf course now, but in 1960 they were almost gone. You were lucky to see 3 a year, okay? And the same thing happened to them, and they almost went away. But because hunters stepped in and helped them, they came back. But the snow geese, if we don't harvest enough for the snow geese on their migration trail, then they will not be able to eat enough food on the way in order to survive the trek to make it. And they're saying we could go from having tens of hundreds of thousands of snow geese covering the skies every year to the next year 0, and we've seen it before. So they use hunters as a utilization to not only buy the tags to help with habitat. You join Delta Waterfowl, all of those conservation efforts that go into supporting wetlands and ecosystems and all that stuff, because boy does it cost money, and it's only getting worse. They pay all that money into it and buy their hunting license and harvest this year's surplus to make room for next year's fawns, and that's a big portion of what's important. So I guess my point is to that is hunting is used as a measure to harvest this year's surplus to make room for next year's babies. When we fish for paddlefish in those waters, that's why we did that. When we hunt snow geese, that's why we do that. And then that puts food on our table in a sustainable way. But you have to have the understanding that you are harvesting animals. And it isn't a celebration like, yeah, up yours. And I asked you about this, and I was wondering it. That's why I was wondering how you would answer that question. To me, like when I shoot a deer, I remember the first time I went out, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. There's a somberness to it. There's a sadness to it that something's giving its life. I don't take that for granted, not for one single solitary second. But when I harvest a 6.5-year-old deer that's going to die next year, and I feed my family with it with pure, organic, clean venison, and that deer lived a fulfilled life, I don't feel bad. I feel sad for the deer, but I know if not enough deer are harvested, what does next year look like? In Michigan, the wild deer herd, we've got a situation now. There's too many white-tailed deer in Michigan, but hunters' participation is way down this year. So in every single hunting zone, the harvest rate was like 15-20% low. So now the DNR is coming together and they're like, well, what are we going to do? They're going to abolish crops. They're going to wipe out crops because we don't have enough. That's the number one concern, because so many crops are destroyed by deer that they give crop damage things, where if you can prove the crop damage, you do that. Same thing with sandhill cranes. Mm-hmm. But anyhow, the deer numbers are getting so high. We're also having a mild winter. We're terrified of what that means, because they're going to spread disease. They're going to spread all kinds of issues to each other. So if we don't harvest enough, then they're going to be in too close to quarters. They're going to spread disease, and a mild winter won't kill off enough of them. So they're talking about hiring sharpshooters, which is the most disgusting thing I've ever heard, and that I will agree with you on, to come out and just kill as many as they can to keep the crops from being destroyed, keep the numbers down so that the deer don't have a population bust because of this problem. And I hate that. I wish more hunters were involved. But to summarize what I'm saying, to me, it's so important that we're harvesting this year's surplus to make room for next year's babies, because it's a renewable resource that we consume and eat, and that we're proud to. But I can understand where you're coming from, is like your whole thing is, well, I don't want to hurt animals. That was a lot. So I warned you ahead of it.
That was a lot, no. But I feel like we're back to the same thing. Michigan hunters are the ones responsible for the overpopulation of deer. There were literal bounties put on killing wolves. The government paid hunters to kill wolves to create the overpopulation of deer.
Yeah, that was one part of it. So what you're talking about is you could at this point say olden days. I'm no longer saying years, because hundreds and thousands become all blended pretty quick. But he's 100% right. He's saying that wolves, we're hired to shoot wolves because they were harvesting all the deer that we wanted to eat. We wanted to be the predator that was eating the deer. We did not want the wolves to be killing all the deer. And now we're starting to even release wolves artificially in areas so that they can go harvest all those elk. And you will see that hunters are on the no side on that for sure because they want that.
Exactly.
And to me, that makes perfect sense. I don't want wolves killing all the deer because I want us to harvest the deer. That's the beautiful thing about it. Is it more important for the wolf to do it than me? Is the wolf going to be nicer about it? Is the wolf going to kill him slower than me? Is the wolf going to rip him out? Is it okay for a wolf to kill, but I'm so high and mighty and above animals that I can't be part of the food chain?
So that I used to believe the same thing, but the main difference between you and a wolf is that a wolf doesn't have a choice where you and I do. We can choose to not hurt animals.
What?
Wolf has no choice.
What about the people who don't have a choice though? Like it seems like it comes down to a problem of ethics. What about like a tribe in the Amazon who's trying to survive? And I'm just asking, like, those people are eating meat. Is there something wrong with that?
I'm not having a podcast with the tribes in the Amazon. I'm talking to 4 people in Michigan.
Yeah, but
All 4 of you here have a choice.
What would your overall goal be for the world when it comes to consuming animals?
To be kind and compassionate and support liberty and individual rights.
Well, wouldn't that
To
include
just mind your own business?
I believe that I am kind and compassionate, and I believe that I do mind my own business. So what would I guess what he's saying is he asked you a question about the tribe in the Amazon that needed that they eat meat, and he asked you if that was an ethical issue, and you said, well, I'm not talking to them. But your overall goal is that people don't eat meat. So I'm asking you directly.
No, my goal is not that people not eat meat. My goal is that people stop hurting animals and promote liberty, justice, kindness, and individual rights. Not for you to stop eating meat. I don't care what you eat. I'm not a dietitian.
So
I'm an animal rights advocate.
Right. So, but eating meat is hurting animals, correct?
Not if you wait until they die or a roadkill, no issue there.
That's interesting.
That's not a rights violation. If they die and you eat, if you're a true carnivore and you can eat the dead body of an animal who's died.
I'm sure you're aware. Do you know the 3 ways animals die in the wild? There's only 3.
Old age, disease, and predator.
Old age ain't one of them. Old age ain't one of them. Animals aren't dying of
How old's the oldest grizzly bear?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Old age is not one of them. That grizzly bear is in another grizzly bear's stomach. I mean, you might get a starvation. So when you say old age, when you find out how did a grizzly bear die or a polar bear die, right? There's no other. Is there anything bigger than a polar bear as far as in his ecosystem? But none of them die of old age. Starvation would be how they would die. If they get it to the point where they can't hunt anymore, they starve to death. But if they were fed and in a zoo, they would continue to die. They would continue to live on. Dying because of old age means your heart can't operate anymore and you're in a nursing home and you die. Obviously, there's no animal nursing homes. The reason why a grizzly bear dies is because he can't hunt effectively anymore. It has nothing to do. So starvation, disease, or being ripped apart by predators. And I'm asking you, is it more compassionate for me to shoot a deer through the heart and it die borderline instantly? Would you at least be able to agree that is less harmful of a death as far as the experience of the death goes? Would you say it's worse to be...
Instantly?
Yeah.
Yeah, when I do it. I got videos. You wouldn't want to see of it, but I got it.
We have video proof
No,
of
you
it.
sent me the videos.
I sent you some videos.
One of the first videos I saw was you guys talking about how you had to shoot a deer and then track him for 45 minutes and shoot him again.
In that example.
Yeah, in that example, yeah. Yeah, I'm asking you, in a perfectly shot animal, which I've done 95% of the time, would you say? You filmed me for the last 8 years.
Yes.
Say 95% of my
animals.
shots are borderline instantaneous death. Would you say that death is I don't know how to say it, like a better experience than starving to death, being ripped apart by predators, or dying of disease? Which one do you think is the least?
The most humane.
Which one's most humane?
Those are the 3 options?
4 options. Me shooting them where they die instantly. Those, because they only die 3 ways in the wild, right? Disease, starvation, ripped apart by predators. Those are the only 3 options. I add a fourth by interfering and shooting one and it dying instantly. Which one is which one is best?
I would have to say that God would ask for you to mind your own business and let the carnivores do what they do best.
God told us to take up our quiver and arrow and hunt, so that isn't true. That's
after the flood, sure.
Take up your quiver and arrow and hunt. He flooded the camp with quail. So that's not the case.
I would say that the natural predators have proven themselves to be exponentially better conservationists than we have. I would have to go with let nature do what she does best.
If you believe that, why do you think we got rid of the wolves?
You wanted to take their prey species.
Turkeys would be extinct.
Turkeys, yeah. Yeah, well, turkeys
have been around long before us, and they'll be around long after us.
But why were they extinct in 1960 in Michigan?
I'm not sure. I haven't studied up.
Or how about every other state except for South Carolina, basically? That's the thing, is like the wild turkeys were extinct in all these areas. Hunters came in and said, "Oh my gosh!" And it was commercial harvest and loss of habitat is what wiped them out. So it was human beings and predators completely wiping them out, right? So they're gone. But your point,
we're back to humans.
Yeah, but you said turkeys were here long before us and they'll be here long after.
Yes.
But you're incorrect, because human beings can wipe them out, because we did. Just like how many species have gone extinct because of human hands?
Passenger pigeons, most of the megafauna in North America.
Right, sure. So human being, you're saying that these species you're saying all these species, and I noticed you use North America, and you pretty much have to, right? Because that was the only place where there were some people, but not very many. Then we came in and wiped them out. So it's really the only good example we have. But you said that turkeys were here long before us, they'll be here long after us. And I'm saying that human beings are capable of wiping out species clearly. So what hunters did was say, hey, and this is that I'm not shying away from any points. I hope you know I'm seeking truth here.
Mutual respect.
Thank you. Wild turkeys are like, okay, wild turkeys are extinct. Hunters came in through the National Wild Turkey Federation, as well as conservation efforts, and they paid to relocate birds. There was a couple birds holed up in South Carolina that we were able to grab and repopulate. That's why you have eastern turkeys in California. They couldn't be more west, and they're in the east. Same thing in Michigan. We have the eastern turkey, and those are relocations from South Carolina at the time. And then what hunters did was say, hey, we want this resource to be here. So what we did was we did release programs. We paid for all this with our money. Nowadays, the population got back up. So 1960, they were almost gone. Now we have the success story of hunters being conservationists because we take a lot of pride in our conservation. I know you said the wolves are better at it, but remember what you said about the wolves. You said wolves don't have a choice. And wolves will kill just to kill. They are not conservationists. They are not conservation-minded, not one single solitary bit. Wolves will kill to kill. Coyotes will kill to kill once they're good at it. That is why when a coyote gets in a hen house, he doesn't eat the 2 hens he's going to eat that night. He kills every last one of them almost every time. That's why when a panther gets into a pen where there's pigs and cattle, he slaughters every last one of them and takes one. It's what is in their instinct. Just like you said, they don't have a choice. They are also not conservationists. So the hunters got together as conservationists and said, let's do this. Let's buy hunting licenses. Let's join the National Wild Turkey Federation. Now when I go hunt wild turkeys, I'm adding to their habitat. I'm reintroducing turkeys. And now because I'm hunting a turkey and shooting one and eating it on Thanksgiving, there might be 5 or 6 new wild turkeys in the wild because I went hunting. And that is why the deer numbers are up, is because same thing. We buy our hunting license. The money goes towards habitat. It goes towards the science. It goes towards anti-poaching efforts. It goes towards all these different things. And that is hands-on conservation. So I think what we can come to is at least a point of agreement here is that we both care about conservation. I take a hands-on approach. You take a hands-off approach. And we kind of let the dice lie. Because you said just let the river be, right? Like hands-off approach is humans not intervening. That was your point. You're saying open up the floodgates of the farm animals, let them all out, they'll become feral and good, and just let everything lie and how it'll be. But the truth is, what you're also going to find is when you look at those crops and you look at those farm fields, and I know I sent you the video, and Ted Nugent, he's a little bit strong with his wording and the whole thing. It is a funny video, but when he talks about what it takes to actually maintain crop fields. So you talked about maintaining the crop fields, and if we just focused on that, then we wouldn't be hurting animals. But in order to maintain a crop field, you're shooting every deer that comes in there. You're shooting every bird that comes in there. You're killing every vole, every rabbit, every shrew. Yeah, all the different animals, the snakes, the turtles. Anything that gets in that field, we're going to kill and dismember. And as Ted Nugent said, that's why the crows and the blackbirds follow the combines every year, is because all the animals get churned up and killed. Then they go down and feast on them. And this is for growing plants, so we don't hurt any animals. And then, if anything does survive it, we're going to come in with Monsanto and poison everything. And that is the whole point is, and trust me, I told you I eat organic, but I also know what the crop yield is on organic. I also know how much is eaten by other animals when it's organic. If you let animals into those fields and you turn those farm fields out, you're going to find that those crops that are going to feed mankind are going to work about as well as we've seen the wind farms work. That's what I think you're going to find.
That was like Ted Nugent verbatim. I don't know how many times you've watched that, but you basically said everything he just said.
It's a fair number.
It's one of the greatest
Twice
hits,
a week,
yeah.
I think you said.
Yeah.
Can you find a single study to back up what he's saying about the amount of crops?
I told you I've got family that does farms. Oh, yeah, they kill every animal that goes in that field. I mean, all of them do. Also, everyone can eat salads and not be responsible for death.
Is your family vegan?
No.
So these are not vegans killing these animals.
You think wearing a vegan shirt would make it so you weren't killing animals that got in the bean fields? Are you saying that your yields are going to be high enough? There's a reason why they kill them. They won't make enough money in order to be able to have a yield to turn it loose. And you're proposing let all the farm animals go on top of it. Let them eat whatever they want. You're going to get some fatties.
Saying you're comparing one non-vegan practice to another non-vegan practice. The way your family produces food is not the vegan way to do it. We have so many ways of doing it that doesn't cause that amount of harm and destruction.
Such as?
Vegan is anti-pesticide. We're trying to get people like your family to stop using the pesticides.
No, to be fair, they're organic on that side. They don't use pesticides. They kill them with the combines and guns, the old-fashioned way. Because if they don't, the crop damage is going to be insane, and the bird damage is going to be insane, and the bug damage is going to be insane, and all the other damages that come. But did you know, too, this is probably playing into your point a little bit, but what they'll do is Monsanto will go around now if you have an organic farm, and what they're finding is that a lot of seeds will blow off of another farm that isn't organic and end up in your field, even though you didn't plant it. It just happens, and if it grows and they come out and test it, they'll sue you out of business for using their seeds and not paying for them through their system. It's a wild thing. Yeah. It's hard to be organic. Very hard to be organic.
For a company like Morningstar, I have to assume they're sourcing their soybeans from a farm that probably practices the churning up of any animal that gets in its way.
Of course they are.
I have to assume you're right. I don't know where Morningstar sources their food from.
Just a random example.
I can't speak on that one.
Can you give me an example of a perfect vegan farm that produces the same amount of crops percentage-wise as a non-vegan farm in any situation? Because then
I can show you many examples of organic farms. Of course, they're all over the world.
Well, we have organic farms, but we kill the animals that get in the field.
Not organic, veganic.
I didn't learn a new word today.
We have veganic farms all over the world. Do they produce as much as non-vegan farms? No, of course not. But I'm sure that you've researched enough that you know that like 80% of the corn and the soy that's being produced is being fed to captive animals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ted Nugent and yourselves, 80% of those crop deaths are for you, not for me.
What is the percentage? The yield? Or is it just so
yield of what?
The crops? Like if you let every animal run wild and everything happens and you don't use any fertilizer and stuff, what does that do to the yield?
If we're talking about greenhouse situations, we produce like 10 times more than open field.
So you're talking about,
and it's far more marketable. It's more protected. It's easier to ship. It's 10 times.
Can you imagine a 30,000 acre greenhouse over that? What is the long-term damage of a 30,000 acre? Because that's what my family has, right? So 30,000 acres of farm fields. What is that greenhouse situation like?
You wouldn't need a 30,000 acre field to produce 10 times more. You would need a tenth of that to produce 10 times more on the same land.
is like the
Please don't. I'm not an expert on this.
Yeah,
topic.
I won't. I
Sure,
won't
sure.
hold you to
Yeah,
any
we're-
of this.
Hey,
Yeah.
please don't. You can Google it. I maybe my numbers are off, but
so like I kind of want to understand what you're talking, like the greenhouse method further. Is it something that would be like more localized to like towns, like they would be like, how does that work?
I wish that would be amazing if we could do it wherever is local. Yeah, I would love to decrease transport miles.
Yeah, as far as the carbon footprint goes. As far as
But even in Michigan, right across the river in Ontario, there's plenty of greenhouses that are growing crops, enough fruits, vegetables, legumes, mushrooms, etc., to feed most of Ontario in this tiny little area.
even if they stopped, if 95% of them quit eating meat.
It would take a long transition, yes, but eventually we could get there. I would need your help, though.
I'm really stuck on this idea of like, at its core, what is it? Like, you don't want to hurt animals. And I'm asking
I
this,
don't want to violate individual rights. I don't want people to take what's not theirs. I want people to stop swinging their fist where other noses begin.
I think like this is the situation I think of in the sense of like, it's end of the world and you're starving to death. What are you going to do? Like, I'm asking that really genuinely. Like, I personally have known someone in Michigan, two brothers that lived in the middle of nowhere. That's how they did not have anything. They lived in a shack, and deer was how they ate. Like, there wasn't much. There was no way around it.
They
in
always
some
talk
sense.
about they were so poor that they didn't have salt. They didn't even have seasonings, and now the mom still doesn't know how to cook.
So I think sort of in that sense, like, what if like it's me and my child and we're trying to do our best? Am I doing something wrong by then hurting an animal to give to my child?
I don't know your specific situation. I don't know these two people. I don't know what they're going through, but I would hope that they would I hope they would consider resorting to violence as a last resort. I would hope that they would consider growing food or supporting somebody who is growing food.
But what about in Michigan? Like, you can't grow food through a certain time. Like,
How is Michigan different from Southern Ontario?
so
In Southern Ontario, they're growing it year round.
okay. You have two very poor people in this example who can't afford to do something like that. They have to eat deer. They have to have a harvest of animals to be able to eat, and without that, they're gonna go without.
Okay, are the four of you, are any of you in that situation?
Yeah, that's not
But-
fair.
but
it
That's
exists,
not fair.
though.
Yeah, well, that's
But
not
it's the
fair.
core
We're
You're
trying-
asking me to speak to somebody else. I don't know. Like, you're trying to present this
No,
situation.
no.
that's
I'm not.
the world
I'm trying.
apocalypse situation.
I'm trying to say at the
None of you are in that situation.
the ethics of what you're trying to propose, where like you shouldn't hurt things. Are they doing
Okay.
something wrong in that sense? Do you see
If
them?
I was on
Where's your
if I was
line?
on an airplane that crashed in the Andes and I resorted to cannibalism because it was my only option, no, of course, it's a relative morality there. In those situations, I would do anything for survival.
So
You, me, and the four people in this room, you're not in that situation.
so it's
You're not in a survival situation.
it's situational ethics.
Kind of have been. We're real poor ones.
The Greenway Outdoors is brought to you by Ram Trucks, built to serve. Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's, your adventure starts here. Savage Arms, Nosler Ammunition, Bosch Shot Shells, Wilderness Athlete, fuel for the rugged, Tracker Boats, fish the finest, Eagle Fishing, designed for the savvy angler, Rufus Teague Barbecues, Snacks, and Spices, Rectech Grills, it's more than a grill, it's a way of life. Sea-Doo, make your own waves. LEM Products, motivating people to hunt, process, and prepare their own food. Quiet Cat, the leader in electronic bikes for hunting, fishing, camping, and exploring. Consistency. That's what you aim for with every practice shot. So when you're out in the field, you get that same consistency every shot. With Carlson's choke tubes, consistency is what you'll get. Our choke tubes are long-lasting, high quality, and made right here in the USA. Carlson's choke tubes, pattern tested, hunter approved. Find out more at choketube.com.
Are you anxious to get going? Knowing that the clock is ticking and time truly is the most precious commodity in the world? then you, my friend, are in good company.
Okay, so in your situation right now, could you go 30 days without hurting animals?
Health-wise, that's what I kind of want to get into, because that's kind of the next point, is could I do anything? Of course. I mean, I go cold plunging every day. I mean, my mind's a steel trap. I can do anything that I put my mind to. Yeah, you do it too?
Before the judge and the thing came, before the court was in session, I wanted to talk about that too. That's definitely
oh, nice. Nice. Well, maybe we'll close out on that. But
let's take a breather before we get into the health. Let's talk about cold plunges.
Yeah,
so for anybody listening, we can totally all agree that cold plunges are amazing. The fact that we can do things that we think our body can't absolutely builds our mind, our body, our circulation. I hope that you can get above 3 minutes sometime soon, because it's freaking amazing.
We're on 7 minutes.
Yeah, he
here.
did 7. He's been doing it too. Yeah, I'm floating around the
You're on 5 now.
Well, today I did 4:30. And that's mainly because I was reading stuff. It's just so darn cold here. I was breaking ice up off it this morning, and I did 4 minutes this morning. But I noticed like the last minute, 2 minutes are the easiest minutes. It's that first minute that is the kicky and the
It's
johns.
the first one that is the toughest of them all.
But what I've noticed is I was having a lot of issues with my back, like consistently getting knots and problems like that from weightlifting and that sort of thing. And I wouldn't call myself a bodybuilder, but I train really hard, and I have for the last 20 years or so. And I that's pretty much gone. The back pain, like the knots don't seem to be forming. From an inflammation standpoint, I'm running all the time. My knees aren't hurting like they were. My ankles aren't hurting like they were. But I think the greatest part about it is when you get out and then the rest of the day just seems easy. You know what I mean? It's like, if I can do that, I feel like I can kind of do anything.
So on the mental side, that's the part I love the most about it, is that, our brains and our bodies are telling us you shouldn't be doing that. But once we've convinced ourselves that we can do it, it just becomes easier the longer you're in there. And next thing you know, it just becomes second nature. Like even taking a warm shower now is difficult for me, because I enjoy the cold showers so much.
Yeah. You feel like you're not getting that buzz off of them. AJ and I have to go to an expo in Nashville, and him and I were Googling to see if there was any around, just because we didn't want to miss out on that buzz.
Right on. So I'm in a hotel today, and I always feel lucky when I get a hotel with a bathtub.
Yeah.
I'm going to take 20 trips back down to the ice machine.
Let's get a lot of ice.
Very, very cool. We've been doing some research on saunas too, because there's a lot of benefits for the heat shock proteins as well in your body. And as we've been looking it up, we found one today on Amazon that was only like $1,300 or $1,400, and it's wood. It's not one of those little zip-up ones. It's got Bluetooth and it's infrared, and I'm learning about, I guess, EMF, or what is it?
Electromagnetic frequency.
Yeah, the EMF, apparently if it's off, it's really bad for you. This one has low that. It's supposed to be great, and it was only $1,400, and it was all really nice. I'm like, I was thinking it was going to be like $6,000 or $7,000. So because so many people are into it, it's gotten pretty affordable. But have you done sauna?
Yeah, I don't. It's harder. When I'm out on the road, the best I can do is hop back and forth between freezing cold and warm shower.
Right.
Sauna's a little harder to come by at hotels as opposed to like a hot tub.
I posted it. You obviously saw it, but I posted a video about the fact that originally people were thinking that you should do it post-workout, and then all the science now and the data is saying that you should do it before the workout, which I kind of like, because then you go into the workout feeling good, But I guess the blood and stuff, when you've got like a pump after you've worked out or whatever, all the stuff that rushes to your muscles is good, and you want to keep it in there. But if you should go into a cold plunge, it kind of pulls it away from there, and then it can actually be detrimental as opposed to beneficial. So it's better to go before you work out. But they were talking about the benefits of hormones and growth hormone and cutting fat. And we're going to Hawaii, since we've been talking about Hawaii so much. We're going to Hawaii in a few months. So I don't want to be fat. So I'm trying to cut right now.
Did you come to ice plunges through Wim Hof or through another?
Gary Brecka. Yeah, he's the one that saved Dana White's life.
And Rogan.
Yeah, Rogan too. I would say Oh no, Rhonda Patrick. Dr. Rhonda Patrick also was on Joe Rogan talking about it, and then he was talking about it, and then at first I thought it was kind of gimmicky, and I'm like, that sort of thing, and then eventually we ended up getting into it. We just bought a horse trough with a spout on the bottom, and then it's so cold in Michigan, we just fill it with the hose, add some treatment to it, and we're good to go. I mean, we'll probably be good through April here, I would think.
Yeah. You already got the ice maker for the summertime?
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was going to be bigger, to be fair.
Then to share knowledge, look into the Wim Hof method, and then you can do the breathing even before the ice plunge, and it's a new level.
I've heard of the breathing thing.
Really?
My dad is into that.
Yeah, I've heard of the breathing thing.
I feel like he would be.
Oh, yeah. My dad, yeah.
Now, getting back to the diet portion of it, is they were talking about, I'm friends with, and you may even know him, he's a very prominent vegan. He's been on Dr. Oz. He's been on Dr. Nandy. He's been on Joe Rogan. His name's Dr. Joel Kahn, very prominent vegan. He's a cardiologist. Very nice guy, good friend actually. And we always rib each other because obviously we live very different lifestyles and have different thoughts. And he's older, so I get to tease him a little bit about that because, of course, I'm going to be in a little bit better shape. But I talked to him about it, and I've talked to other doctors. I've heard people talk about it, is that it is not an easy transition thing as far as, like, getting all the nutrition that you need living the vegan lifestyle. That it's possible, but it's not easy. And that's from doctors. That's from people who are like, here's the aminos you need. Here's this you need. Getting B12, getting creatine, getting all these different things that you have to supplement for to make sure that you're getting exactly what your body needs. What has been your experience, though?
I haven't found it difficult at all.
What is like a typical day?
This morning I had oatmeal with some blueberries, blackberries, and raspberries. I haven't had lunch yet. I do 2 meals a day. When I'm on the road, it's a little bit different, but I like to do... Generally, I'll stick to a 16-8 fasting.
Yeah, we do. I do the exact same thing.
That's when I thrive the most. Obviously, when I've got my kids and I got to get them breakfast, I usually have breakfast with them when I'm at home.
Sure.
Out on the road, I really love a 16-8. Sometimes I can just do one big heavy meal at night.
How hard is it when you're on the road? It's got to be hard.
No, we have it. Maybe 10, 20 years ago, that was true.
I've heard like catering.
I don't know if I could have.
Catering.
I don't know if I could have done this 20 years ago.
Sure.
Okay.
Nowadays, with modern technology, I can just go on an app, find the nearest place. I can find farmers markets. Mushrooms are my go-to. Anywhere I can go, I can find mushrooms to get everything I need. Daily, I have a single multivitamin. If that's out of the ordinary, then that's the hardest it's been.
I'll tell you, we've been studying a lot with the multivitamins and stuff. One of our partners is called Wilderness Athlete, and they take a ton of pride. They have the best scientists in the world. They were actually the leaders in 2 things. One, creatine years ago, when everyone thought it was like a steroid and you were scared to take it. Now creatine is like known as like one of the best things you could ever put in your body and mind. But in addition to that, they did an analyzation something like 10 years ago where they realized everyone was deficient in vitamin D. And as now everyone seems to be very well aware of that with everything going on, and they started putting it in their multivitamin 10 years ago when they knew that science was there before anyone even knew about it. And something else that we've noticed, and this was a big bummer for me with some of the stuff that we'd eat, but almost all B12 that's given, whether it's shots, whether it's found in a Celsius or a lot of the energy drinks or Flintstones vitamins or any of those things, it's actually the base of it is made from cyanide.
Cyanocobalamin.
Cyanocobalamin. So
Good job.
I will tell you this: if you're taking a multivitamin 2 and you're looking for, I met the people, I met the scientists, I met everyone. They put so much work in it. It's called Wilderness Athlete. It's just a multivitamin. It's $25 like any other one. But I'd highly recommend them because they care so much about being out of that. But almost all multivitamins now you'll find have that cyanide based in them, and a lot of I won't go down every single different ingredient with a lot of different multivitamins and stuff, but there's a lot of stuff in there that's bad for you. So Wilderness Athlete, for what it's worth, I recommend their multivitamin highly.
As far as B12, I get the supplements. I get my mushrooms. I get all my B12 from mushrooms.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah, well, that's we have a great morel mushroom picking season here in Michigan. We've got a couple hot spots. So maybe we'll have to bag you up and send you some. And
That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah,
Have
Yeah.
you had that lion's mane mushroom yet?
Love me some lion's mane. I started growing my own when I'm back at home.
Very cool. We just had chicken in the woods for the first time, and oh my gosh,
Oh,
you know
so
what?
good.
If you're borderline thinking about it, I tell you what, that one makes a real case for me going vegan. I mean, it was that good. I mean, it was chicken in the woods is top notch.
My go-to is king trumpets. I can't get enough of them.
Okay.
I ate animals for 40 years of my life, 39 and some change. So I still have the cravings. I still have the desire for the taste and the texture. Mushrooms have absolutely satiated that for me.
Nice.
So interesting. I will say,
King trumpet. I prefer king trumpet over most anything now.
I will say I have respect to vegans in the regard of it takes a lot of dedication to live a lifestyle like that, and not only that, you guys have to be healthier in like percentage wise than most people because you are so like you everything you're eating you're picking out with purpose.
You're conscious of everything.
You're conscious of everything. So I have to give that to you guys that you have to eat really, really well. But I think there's a lot of similarities in the sense of like people like us, like the way animals should be managed is a difference of opinion, but health and lifestyle is more similar than maybe we had thought.
Yeah, I would say that I think we can definitely reason with the fact that we probably agree on a lot of things politically, which was I probably most of the audience wouldn't have guessed that going in. There's like a stereotype for sure on both ends, right? And then I think that's pretty cool. I think it's cool that we both know what good mushrooms taste like. As far as like,
you don't want to import things.
Yeah, we both don't want to import things. We also don't want, we both don't want invasive species being released into our waterways or our ecosystems. I do not agree on a lot of points as far as what would happen in the management and what the world would look like, and I do believe that there's one point that I want to make, is that to me, and this is probably be even a little bit offensive to you, but in the nicest way, is like, to me, animals are resources. They're renewable resources. And the thing is, we treasure them. I treasure a deer herd more than I treasure an individual deer. Whereas I give you a lot of respect in the fact that your care is that an animal is hurt. My care is what does the overall herd look like for everybody. And I think that there's just a different form of thinking there. But
so if I can address that, you mentioned that several times in some of your podcasts, but then you go on to define the animals that you do see as individuals and the animals that you don't see as individuals.
And what's it, like dogs, are you saying?
Dogs, monkeys, apes.
Yeah, I can't.
Dolphins.
Oh yeah.
Pigs.
I would more or less say that that's a great point. We can even dive into that a little bit. So people, one of the questions that you asked on Facebook was, well, why don't you hunt your dog? So I don't want to eat my dog. I want my dog around. So I'm individualizing that dog. I don't disagree with that. Dogs have been companions of man for a very long time. It's why they're actually, it's interesting, is from a species standpoint, they are technically all wolves, even a Pomeranian, if you can get your head around that, and that we've bred them differently. And I still can't fathom how we're that good at genetic modification that through selective breeding, we've been able to get a Pomeranian out of a wolf. It still amazes me to this day.
I think Corgi is more impressive.
But I love Corgis. But to me, those animals, to me, it is 100% an individual. And you could say, well, you're being hypocritical then, because how come you're choosing that animal and not choosing that one? Well, the deer herd's purpose to me is food and clothing, whether it be the skins and food. And the dog's purpose is companionship and helping me hunt. So the dog's purpose is that for me. The deer herd is that. In order for the deer herd to succeed, I have to look at it like a herd. In order for me to have a companion that I can train and teach to help me hunt more birds, I have to be able to have that relationship with him to have that success. But he's a companion nonetheless. So I can see why you're like, well, that's hypocritical. For the reasoning of the sense is like, well, I eat. It really comes down to is like, yeah, but I eat meat. I eat deer. I don't eat dogs. You know what I mean? I don't. That's not what I eat. Just for the same reason that you might not want to eat a certain, like if you could eat one of these trees that are 1,000 years old, you might be like, nah, let's say you were eating trees, right? It's a plant. But you're like, I don't want to cut down that 1,000-year-old tree because that tree has some sentiment. Let's leave that one be. I don't want to cut down that tree. I'm fine with cutting down this tree for firewood, but leave the 1,000-year-old one that has this nostalgia to it alone. It's human nature to be picky and choosy. I completely understand your hypocrisy to it. Is like, if all animals are just animals, then how come you're picking a companion in that? I understand the hypocrisy in it, but it comes down to the fact that I do eat meat, and that's what I eat. I don't eat the dog. I understand your point.
Emu is a hunting companion?
He should be. He's old now and a little bit lazier, but he should have been. And Emu's not technically mine. He's AJ's. We've got German short-haired pointers.
I have the
he's got the hunting dog.
I have a hunting dog.
Yeah, Emu's he's actually a rescue that he was going to be he was on his way out. He was from the Texas flood that took place.
Yeah, Harvey.
Harvey.
Okay.
And he was unhomed and no one wanted him.
I'm sure he could have been good at it.
He should, yeah.
I'm still waiting for a comment at one point on one of our videos like, hey, that's my dog.
Yeah.
I lost him 8 years ago.
Because whoever it was didn't claim him in the flood. That is kind of funny. I never thought
a good
about
one,
that.
Jeff.
But no, Emu's not a cunning.
Maybe we can find something else that we agree upon. What about puppy mills?
No. No.
No, always no.
Always no.
What about the lives of those puppies that would have been lost if there weren't puppy mills?
Sure. Yeah. But at the same time, so many.
Isn't it better to bring them into the world as a resource than to not breed them?
But that one comes down to quality of life. What you're getting is bad hips, bad knees, bad brains, bad everything about it.
Probably
is
better
bad.
not to bring them into life.
Whereas,
Just like the chickens, cows, and pigs that we also bring into the world for the exact same reason.
Are they inbreeding though?
I'm sure.
Yes.
I'm sure.
All the dairy cows come from about 2 cows from 60 years ago.
Adam and Eve.
They're all in there.
They named them Adam and Eve. Jeez, Jeff. No, to that point. So let's dive into that a little bit deeper.
I'm comparing factory farming to puppy mills. You guys are clearly opposed to puppy mills, but supportive of factory farming.
Right. So the real difference, while Ryan brought up quality of life as far as like what the quality of life is, but it's actually quality of the species being born is what he meant to say. And that's because bad knees, bad legs, whatever it is. Then when you get into the factory farming, the fact is the animals that are factory farmed are all consumed. The problem with dogs is so many don't get taken as pets. So many don't get adopted, and they're just how many of them? Tens of thousands. How many? And we should agree on this too, that we can both hate the Humane Society because they are responsible for tens of thousands of killings of dogs and cats a year, millions even. I mean, it's just a horrendous thing. Not the Michigan Humane Society, the one here that helps gets dogs adopted and stuff like that. I'm talking about the National Humane Society that kills more pets than any other organization ever. They are the Planned Parenthood of dogs and cats once they're born. So the problem is with the factory farming, the problem with the puppy mills and comparing it is all the animals of the factory farming are being consumed in one way or another, but so many dogs never find homes, end up getting killed by the Humane Society and so many other organizations, and never actually used or utilized or homed or anything like that. So you're churning and burning these puppy mills, and yet the animals aren't even being distributed or used or getting any kind of quality of life, and the ones that are have bad hips and bad joints and stuff like that. So there's a smarter way to do it, and that's kind of where we've come to our agreement on just about everything. Is your way is don't let that happen, and our way is there's a smarter way to be doing it, such as conservation versus hunting and fishing for wild animals through conservation, raising funds to make the species better, as opposed to factory farming. So it's a different way of looking at the whole thing.
But I haven't heard you actually oppose factory farming.
I until there's a better way to do it, I'm not going to, because it has to be done better, but the new process isn't there yet. It's the same reason why people are like, oh, we should just stop fossil fuels and oil right now. Well, then what?
Okay.
Right? There's no process. There's no way to handle that yet. And then
What if I told you there's a better way available today, right now?
Well, there are some that do it, but in the mass quantities and numbers to get to what we need for production doesn't exist yet, or it's not sustainable yet.
I'm living the better option. You could not support it.
Then we go right down to the same process of releasing all the animals that are there into the wild, seeing what happens, them eating the farms, out computing every mole, every shrew. You go right down the same path.
So the only option then is to continue supporting factory farming?
No, it would be something like getting away from oil, where there has to be a process where you're getting better at it. In order to churn out the numbers that we have to get to, you've got to come up with a better process. But again, that's going to take up better ecosystem. So maybe the better option is the way that I'm living. Maybe I'm the living way of it. Yeah. Maybe I'm the answer, that people start hunting, harvesting the surplus of deer, making room for next year's fawns, and focusing more on wildlife from that standpoint, because that would actually solve the problem right now. And I'd still get to eat meat. Which, again, not scared to say I want to.
So hopefully you allow me to play devil's advocate then. What about the poor people who can't do that? What about them?
Hunting's a poor man's sport.
Yeah, that's the greatest thing about the United States of America. We're the only country in the world where the poor people do it.
Out to the country.
What's that?
What about the inner city kids who can't get out to hunt? What if, they've got a single mom, they can't afford your lifestyle?
This is the whole
and
that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm not saying to get rid of factory farming yet. I'm saying that
the infrastructure isn't there for an
alternative. The infrastructure, yeah, exactly. You can't just shut it off.
I'm saying that your solution would take as much effort as mine. And I'm using the same logic where, like, well, what about the people who can't do that?
Yeah, but 95% of people eat what I eat. That's not true. You got an uphill battle of teaching people how to think, eat, and how to produce. I just got to say, pick up a gun and go get a deer, like it says in the Bible. I mean, he didn't say gun, but you get what I'm saying.
He definitely didn't say gun.
Yeah, he didn't bring that up.
It's almost like he didn't even know guns existed.
Yeah, almost. But I think at this point, I think we've come to agree on a lot of things. I'm sure we're over the hour mark. You're our new longest podcast, which is pretty cool.
It was fun.
And I will say this. I really, really, really appreciate people's passion. While I disagree about the health things that Ryan said, as far as vegans overall being healthier, there's a lot of data that says that isn't true. So I disagree with you heavily there. But at the same time, I think it takes a lot of dedication to pull off what you pull off. I think it takes a lot of work to pull what you pull off. And I also like the fact that you're passionate about it. And I will say this. I believe that where you're coming from is a place of purity. I don't think you're a jerk. I don't even think you're very judgy. I think you're coming from a place of purity in your heart. I'm grateful for you doing this with us. I'm grateful for you talking to us. I have a lot of respect for you. I've enjoyed it. And I think the coolest thing about the whole thing is we'd probably end up being friends in the end of it. We just might not be eating the same thing at dinner.
Eating the same someone, yes.
Yeah.
No,
Good ending shot. I like it. Is there any other thing that you want to get out before we close this out?
If you want to have another one, we could actually talk about the funding that you keep discussing, because I used to think the same thing, and it's just not true. But maybe that's for another. If this one becomes a popular podcast, we'll have another.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Nice.
Conservation funding.
Fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough. I will tell you this, just as a courteous to you. I didn't study anything coming into this because I wanted to come in clear-minded with the whole thing. I just wanted to have a genuine conversation, and I thought the judge was going to be more helpful. I feel like the court was actually loaded. I don't know if you paid him or what happened here.
I was just going to say, I don't think he took the $20 we gave him.
Yeah, yeah. I want my $20 back. No, I'm just teasing. But I again, appreciate you so much. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Green Outdoors podcast. I hope this conversation was educational to you. I also hope it was a good example for you. I think that hunters and anti-hunters alike get on Facebook, get on Instagram, and they act a fool because they've never been punched in their face in their life. And they say ridiculous things to people that they've never met because they're behind their safety and security of their keyboard. And I think being a little bit more respectful and starting the conversation out a little bit nicer is going to help both sides understand each other, because I think what we can agree on is that the way things are handled when it comes to our food production could be handled better. I may have a solution, he may have a different one. But at the same time, there may be a solution that's better, that the two of us can agree are at least better than the current situation. And respectful conversations like that are going to lead to a brighter future for America and everywhere else. So thanks so much for tuning in. Check out our television show. It streams on the History Channel right now. Our weekly video podcast you can find right here on YouTube or Carbon TV. If you're only listening to it on Spotify or iTunes, you can also find the video version, like I said, on YouTube and Carbon TV. And check out our weekly vlog series. And don't hate us so much on Facebook. Thanks for tuning in. Stay green.